Hello and welcome back to the FPL podcast by Fantasy Football Hub. With Gameweek 14 still very fresh in our minds, we look ahead to Gameweek 15, which starts on Tuesday. So with barely any time to make sense of the big decisions the community are asking, we tackle the hot topics now. The two hot topics today that our listeners have requested we cover are an evaluation of the best goalkeeper to hold over the Christmas period as the highly owned Nick Pope's fixtures and form seemingly dry up. And the second is dismount, as we assess the emergence of new key midfield options, including Zaha and Ali, using the fantastic Fantasy Football Hub comparison tool. Thank you very much, Tom, for the term dismount. Very good indeed.
No worries.
As usual, we are joined by our esteemed Hub colleagues, Andy Green. Andy, how are you doing?
Good, man. Good.
Good. Adam Hopcroft.
Yeah, how you doing, Andy?
Hello there, Adam. Yeah. And Tom from Who Got the Assist?
You're right, guys.
Cool. Okay. So straight into the first topic then. Which is the best goalkeeper to have over the Christmas period? And Andy, can I come to you?
Well, let's see if we can make goalkeeper chat exciting or certainly interesting, if not exciting. So I was looking at this because I actually do own Pope myself. And luckily, I still have Adrian lurking there. So given Alisson's suspension, I'll probably stick him in versus Everton. But if you were looking, and I probably will look at this next week, to change away from Pope, I think the standout one for me, and it's probably not been discussed very much because it's not a lot of players will already have three Leicester players, but it is Schmeichel. If you look at his last four games, he's got basically the best XGC, or Leicester have the best XGC. They've only conceded 16 shots in the box, which is the best in the league by a considerable margin. I think the next one is Everton. The next lowest is Everton. Budget's obviously a concern because he's 5.3 million. Most people will still be looking like for like, around the 4.5, 4.6 mark. But for me, Leicester, probably because they're attacking so much, means that they actually have conceded, certainly got a good run of fixtures as well. They've got Watford at home, Villa away, Norwich up next. And then, of course, they have Man City away, which you're probably not looking for a clean sheet from that one. Leicester for me, if you look at the whole season as well, they've got the lowest XGC at 14.92 for the 14 games so far. Next up, in terms of replacement, I'd be looking at Henderson. Again, it's not going to be a popular pick for many because most of us now probably have Lundstrom, of course, but with Newcastle, Norwich, Villa, and then Brighton in the next four, and at 4.7 million, I'd seriously consider the double up. With a team like Sheffield United, I wouldn't be too concerned with the defensive double up. So if you're looking to switch out Pope, I think Schmeichel and Henderson are the two best alternatives right now.
Cool. What about you, Adam?
You know what? For those of you that can see the visual, the person right at the bottom is it Guaita, Guitar, whatever?
Guaita, I think, yeah.
Thanks, Tom. I appreciate it. I'm terrible with pronunciation, but I think, he's got the lowest XGC, but I think highest even, but I think that's partly because of who he's placed. And Palace are just a boring team. Sit back, defend, and hope let Zaha try and do the best, who we'll talk about later on. And I think there'll be plenty of clean sheets in their fixtures, I think. So I think he's the best option. He's only 0.3 more than Pope. So I think he's a good option. Interestingly, I was looking back on goalkeepers because one of the strategies that I put in this season, which a lot of people have done, is just have a set and forget 4.5 keeper. But if you'd have actually gone with Henderson and Ryan, or Henderson and Pope, and you'd have picked the logical games, because I think there's some quite obvious choices in there, you'd be about 11 or 12 points up, which is almost a point a game week, which I think actually does push it back. Is it worth having 2.5s, 4.5s and rotating? Because I'll be honest, I probably wish I did have a second one at the moment, because then it would mean you don't have to waste a goalkeeper transfer for the for 0.5 million. So I think for me, Guaita looks the best option, but going forwards and possibly next season and wildcard, I'll probably look at having two 4.5s.
Yeah, just to jump in there, Adam, I've been looking at this over the last week or so. I've been tempted to bench boost over the last week or so because my bench has been very, very strong. I've had like Cantwell on my bench. I've lost out on all his points. Looking this week, I've got a really good 3. I think I've got Cantwell. I think it might be Lundstrom and someone else. But the one thing putting me off is I've got Stekelenburg as my 4 million the keeper, and I know you shouldn't just have the 2 keepers. Obviously, just to the bench boost option is there. But as you say now, I'm kind of stuck. I'm certainly looking at a goalkeeper sub this week, and with all the options, especially later we're going to talk around mids and stuff, it seems a bit of a waste. But yeah, I think that Stekelenburg has just been like a rotten tooth in my FPL mouth, and I just
I mean, it's a bit annoying, isn't it? But like David Martin 4.0,
yeah.
I mean, he could come in and do a job for you. It's not the greatest game, is it? It's Wolves away, but and it is West Ham, to be fair. But fun fact, he's played in 1 game. He's got the highest goals to saves ratio in FPL at the moment for goalkeepers. He's played 1 game, obviously. For anyone writes in angry, it's interesting though, isn't it? Keepers, like, I think it's like I'm right in saying that Krul and McGovern would be the best keeper combo if you'd gone with them at the start of the season.
Wow.
Just because McGovern would have come in for 11 points for the 2 games. 11 points in 2 games for that time when Krul was out. So I don't know. I can't get excited about keeper transfers really. I think I'd agree with Andrew, what he was saying initially about Henderson being quite a good option. The fixtures are good, aren't they? They've got Norwich. They've got I'm in the wrong place. Newcastle, Norwich, Villa, Brighton. Over the next 4, that is. He's got the second most clean sheets with 5. But the thing is with him, as you mentioned, Lundstram has such high ownership. But it's just universal now. I can't think of a time now when I'm going to be not fielding Lundstram. Maybe the Man City game, but even that I might want to field him. But the effect of that is that it eliminates the Sheffield United clean sheet, and it kind of puffs up the averages, doesn't it? Because every time they keep a clean sheet or Lundstram does something else, we all get those points. So the FPL average is always pushed up by that. And people don't often double down and think, like, people like to spread the risk, don't they? Like, there's a lot of talk about Guaita this week, as Adam pointed out. I'm not sure. I think the fixture is very good for Palace as well, but Hendo's really nice, 0.3 cheaper, I think it is at the moment. And the point of double down is when everyone wins, which is always what you want to be part of, right? With any well-owned player like Lundstram, you win even bigger, and that's a really nice appeal to having that double up. I think it's a nice shield, isn't it? A nice sword kind of tactic, isn't it, in defence? So, I'll be looking at Henderson, I think. I think that he'd be the one that I'd be looking to bring in. I've got Pope at the moment. I'm going to leave him for now, but I'm just not sure whether I want to spend the precious free transfer on the keeper, really. So I might just stick with Pope for the time being and just not regard it as not really being a fire, or it's more something that I may mess with if I've got 2 FT.
Yeah, I think maybe towards the start of the season, people got caught with 2 Liverpool. I certainly did get caught with 2 Liverpool players. They spent a lot of money on them. They didn't get the clean sheets. Okay, they did get attacking returns. So maybe people are put off by having a defensive double up. But with those fixtures, and we've seen Sheffield United put up some amazing defensive performances, and those 4 fixtures for me are some of the best coming up. So I wouldn't be put off with the double up, assuming you have Lundstram as well.
So looking at a question we had from FPL Martian, he's asked quite a specific question. Is it time to dip? excuse me. And ahead of great fixtures for Guaita and Henderson. So those who are on YouTube, we've got a comparison now of Guaita and Henderson for their last 4 games started. And if we look at the visual, the thing that stands out probably is that it's probably a bit closer than we thought. Expected clean sheets is slightly higher for Henderson, while Guaita is a bit better on bonus. But it's actually very level here. Has anyone got anything else to add on there, guys?
No, I'd agree. Just what Tom said on the double ups. Whilst you can double win, you can also double lose. So second Sheffield United concede a goal. It's like a double blow. So I don't like defensive double ups for that reason, because I think you can be very cruel when a goal goes against you. But you are right. You're right with your logic. Everyone has Lundstram, so it's about getting an advantage, and they do look fairly solid and they've got a good run. But then when it comes to the City and Liverpool game around Christmas, what do you do then? Are you going to transfer again? Another goalkeeper transfer?
No, it's the logic you lean into, isn't it? Like, the risk you take is against the caution, if that makes sense. Those sorts of things are the things that eventually make you climb. If you've got a very standard-looking team, which may happen again, where we're all looking fairly similar. At the moment, we've got loads of options, of course, we're talking about on this pod, but I think that it is always kind of a natural instinct to want to spread the risk, of course, because of exactly what you said. And we saw that even with Liverpool defenders. They're not immune, even if they're not immune, the Sheffield United newly promoted team surely isn't. But I mean, as you can see, that the fixtures are just so good at the moment. This is just on the screen if you're on YouTube. I just think that they are ones that we should really be looking at and thinking, they would be a good time to be playing that sort of double up, right? It's the next few you can get a nice little boost to your rank through going with that sort of tactic.
I think there's an argument for keeping Pope, though. I think there's because against City aren't firing on all cylinders, and he could rack up some save points there. And actually, after the City and Spurs game, he's got 3 or 4 okay fixtures where Burnley could get clean sheets. So I think there is an argument for keeping him.
Yeah, I think my opinion on it. I think if you're looking for a keeper for the next 4 or 5 weeks, then Henderson is your man. But if you look at Palace's next 8 or 10 fixtures, they've got a really, really, really good run. I personally tend to try and look a bit long to expect, especially making a transfer on a keeper. And I do wonder how long Sheffield United can keep up this kind of level of intensity, which is keeping the ball away from the defence and the goalie as well. They must run miles and miles every game. Is it possible to do that 3 times a week over the next month? I'm not so sure about that. So I'm certainly heading more towards Guaita for the longer term fixtures. Okay, he's a little bit more expensive, but yeah, that's my kind of logic behind that. Anything else on goalies, chaps?
No, let's change the subject.
Let's change the subject.
Managed to make it sound interesting, though, didn't we?
Yeah. It's only so long you can talk about goalkeepers. Okay, so on to the next subject, which is dismount, and this is looking at the midfielders, and the graphic we've got up is XG for midfielders per game over the last 4 weeks. As we can see, Pulisic, that's twice I've sworn. Pulisic heads it with 0.66 XG, followed by Mane. Ward-Prowse, very surprisingly, up there in third, and Ali with fourth. Guys, what are your thoughts at the moment? Do we take out Mount? And if so, who do we replace him with?
Oh, God. So I've gotten rid of Mount already, laying my cards on the table. I feel like I just held him for too long. When you get a player that every week there's a little bit of an excuse to keep him. Like Adam, you were on WGTA earlier on in the year, weren't you? And you're saying, he's Lampard's boy, and he was he was so good at the start of the year. But I just don't know what's happened to him. I'm sure you'll agree. Like, it's not a pop at you. I'm just saying that he has kind of depreciated from those sort of halcyon days. Like 4 blanks in the last 4 games, and I don't know. Like, he just seems to have really tailed off a little bit. Like, I think that for whatever reason, teams seem to maybe at the start of the season he was an unknown quantity, and he had a bit more space, a bit more time to do what he wanted. Or I think maybe teams now are a bit more wise to him. Yeah, I'm sure he's going to score against you a lot now, Adam. After that, but I think I've just held on. I've held him for too long, and I moved on to Zaha. Actually, he doesn't even appear on the table in front of you, which isn't.
Tom, you'll love this then if you've moved him for Zaha earlier. Look, the last 4 game weeks, expected points. So Zaha had got 17 and was right at the bottom of the page.
Oh God,
17.1, 1 place above him. Guess who it is?
Mount.
Yeah.
Well, that's even better. But I mean, we spoke about the Palace fixtures a minute ago. Like, fixtures can create form, and FPL General has said as well that maybe that also means that the shop window's coming up and Zaha will show up again. Who knows? But the fixture is so good, and at 6.6, I'm happy if a player just ticks over and does things every now and again for me, I suppose. And I think Zaha, if they are going to make the most of those good fixtures, is going to be the guy at the centre of getting those points for Palace, or getting those goals and assists for Palace, I suppose. Like, it was last year, 10 goals, 11 assists, and he got the most FPL assists that whole season, obviously for milli penalties, I suppose. That's the first time he's done it, actually. Last year it was Sterling. The other guy, I guess I quite like, is Ali. So I went for Son myself. I think that was just because, well, he's one of my favourite players. I think the door is always open to Son. But Ali's looking incredibly impressive. That second goal, especially, was really, really good. Of his fantastic take on the chest for the Toby ball over the top. And the finish was so good. It was a goal scorer's finish, really. And I remember I had a look at it as well. 2016-17, 18 goals, 11 assists, 225 points. He had the most big chance amongst midfielders that year. 58 shots in the box and a 20% conversion rate that year. What that all means is that as a shadow striker, he's a very effective player. An over 200 points return for a player who costs 8.5 at the moment. He's got that in his locker. I think that makes him really, really interesting, especially over Christmas. There is one little golden period for Spurs between 19 and 21, Brighton, Norwich and Southampton. And that could be kind of a period where we're actually looking to double up, maybe go Son and Ali. But I really, really like Ali. I wish I'd gone that way. And I'm open to flipping from Son to Ali if I need to make some cash, because, I think Son is probably still going to be the highest goal scorer, the highest point scorer up until that over that Christmas period. But Ali, if you factor in value for money, suddenly they look fairly even, actually. So if I need some money, I may well flip them over. But every confidence in Son for the time being to do a job for me. But yeah, there's loads floating about, aren't there, guys?
Yeah, I think budget's a key one here. If we'd been talking 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think budgets were pretty tight. But now a lot of people have moved on from Sterling. Some have moved on from Salah. So there's a bit more money flying around people's teams. And it was interesting that I think all of us were talking about Pulisic last week. To be bringing him in. Obviously, the Tammy injury then happened, so a lot of us were moving on to who we're going to replace him with, or do we keep him? But one bad game against West Ham, and we're all, not suddenly he's off the radar. I mean, look at even that bad game against West Ham, he still had, I think it was 5 shots.
It was very good.
And Mount, even, for those who are keeping him, I think he recorded 3 shots and 2 key passes last game. So although he's kind of been a bit anonymous, I think there is still potential for Mount and also for Pulisic, particularly if, Tammy's not going to be playing 90 minutes in the next 2 games potentially, as he kind of comes back to full fitness or shakes off whatever injury or bruise he has. Then, I think Pulisic is still a good candidate. But I agree, Ali for me is potentially the kind of playing out of position almost. He's up there with every counter-attack. Him and Son linking up very well. Son potentially might outscore him throughout the season, but for me, Ali does look like the more likely to score given the positions he's taking up. And he's clearly Mourinho's guy for the moment. So I think it really depends on budget. If you are looking for kind of around the price point, then you might be looking at someone like Perez, for example, although he seems to be nailed on to playing 65 minutes every game, which is a bit concerning. You've got the likes of Trossard, who I think should have scored, was it not for Alisson handling the ball outside the box. And then you've got Zaha as well, as we've discussed. For me, Zaha would not be an option simply because he might be the kind of, the main player, the main creative force in that side. But Crystal Palace, I mean, their XG is the second lowest in the league. So I prefer to spend a bit more money and get Pulisic in a very attacking team with Chelsea there, who's 3rd in the league for XG so far. So for me, Ali and Pulisic would be top targets as a replacement, but I wouldn't actually rule out keeping Mount and seeing how he does over the next couple.
I'm benching Mount this week and playing Cantwell ahead of him.
That says it all, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I think, Cantwell, to be fair to him, he's got like a 10 and an 8 in the last 2 matches.
Yeah, he's been good.
And he's Southampton away, which is the perfect counter-attacking fixture. So I can see, I think it's worth the risk, but I don't see Mount getting anything. I agree wholeheartedly on Pulisic. I've got him. I'm happy to have him. I think he even had a run up front towards the end of the game. So I think he's Chelsea's best player and biggest goal threat. So I'm happy to own him. Completely agree on Ali. He seems more of the goal threat. Son seems more of the creator, which levels up with the big chances created. And big chances stats. Zaha, he's got great fixtures. I don't think there's I don't think he's been playing that well. And actually, the weekend he scored, but Pope fumbled it in. It was his only shot of the game. So if that didn't happen, does it change round? The player that we haven't talked about, and I'm quite excited to be talking about him, is Jack Grealish. I don't see a better player under 7 million or midfielder anyway in the game. He's that good at the moment. He's got. With the United, the goal he scored against United was brilliant, but he missed an absolute sitter as well. He's capable of doing it in any game. He's dominating matches for Villa. Wouldn't be surprised if he's involved tomorrow away at Chelsea on Wednesday in terms of output. And he's got great fixtures around Christmas. So I'm tempted to bring him in a little bit earlier, maybe even around the Leicester game next week, because I think he's playing that well at the moment. He's got obviously a big carrot in terms of England, but I've not seen him play as well for Villa as he is at the moment. So I think Grealish over Zaha, irrespective of the fixtures, more creative. He's having more shots. He is the ultimate talisman of the team. Yeah, we've got toughish fixtures, but I think we'll score against anyone. I think we've shown that recently. We probably should have scored against Man City away, scored against Liverpool. So I would say go Grealish over Zaha. There you go. There's my Villa and fantasy football hat in one.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things which is quite well, you can see on the questions here, it's quite prevalent this week to talk about this sort of area of midfield, isn't it? And I think Zaha, I put a tweet out the other day, and just a lot of people seem to be kind of liking it. Obviously, James from FPL has been very into him for quite a while.
Yeah.
But I do know what you mean about Grealish as well. What's nice about Grealish is the price point. So if I have Zaha for now, looks like his price is going to rise. He's got a few games it's worth holding him for. If it doesn't work out, game week 18, what have Villa got? They've got Southampton and Norwich, 2 home games in a row. So if it's nice an escape route, and Grealish is good because I can put him in at that point as well. I don't know. Just hope the best for Zaha.
It's a good point. It's a really good point on that. And I think a lot of people are doing that. Try Zaha. If it doesn't work out, there's a few players that could be the exit strategy. So I think,
exactly.
I think he's worth a risk. He's capable of, those magic moments in games. It's just that Palace aren't that free scoring.
No, they really aren't. It's just the price point, isn't it? 6.6. I mean, you're not holding up to a standards of a Sadio Mane. You're kind of looking at the potential of the player and what he can do if the fixtures align with what could be form. I completely accept your point there about Burnley. I was watching the highlights of that game because let's face it, that wasn't the best of games. So I thought I just kind of watched the highlights. But yeah, he didn't show up at all apart from that goal that Pope really should have saved. He should have saved both of them, to be honest.
Yeah. So I took out Mount for Pulisic for a hit on the weekend. It obviously didn't pay off on the weekend, but I'm very excited to be owning Pulisic for the next week or two. And in terms of the question, do we get rid of Mount? I think if you've got no one to switch him to, then you can hold him and play him. He looked okay on the weekend, I thought. As you say, he had a couple of good shots, but I'm personally off him. The one I'm really excited about, I am a Spurs fan, and it's Ali. So if we just look at these stats which compare Zaha and Ali for the last 4 games, apart from touches in the box, which Zaha is slightly ahead on, Ali is way above. And I remember, I think it was 3 seasons ago when Kane and Ali just went on this run of scoring. I think Ali scored 6 goals in 3 games over the Christmas period, or something along those lines. I remember he scored a couple of headers against Chelsea, and he was just on fire. And it looks like just watching the last 2 games, particularly last weekend, it looks like he's moved forward. And Mourinho, his comments as well, saying that Ali is not a midfielder. He should be playing off the shoulder. He should be playing in a more attacking role. I'm just all over Ali. The only slight concern is he can be slightly injury prone, and he's got an odd dive in him every now and then, and he's got a bit of a temper. So, he's just as likely maybe to do something else on the pitch as score a goal. But the form he's at the moment, he looks back to his best. I think at 8.4 or 8.5 million, wherever it is. Especially,
Andrew, do you currently have Ali at the moment?
No, I've currently got Son, but I'm looking at the fixtures as mentioned by Tom in a few weeks' time, and I'll be looking to double up over over those Brighton and the other 2 fixtures after it. I've got, I've still got Mane and Pulisic, etc. So I can't really afford Ali, but I'm definitely holding a place in my team over the next few games.
The one thing about both of these players, and it's actually a slight counter towards Pulisic, is with this fixture congestion coming up, got another game kicking off tomorrow, is that teams who do have the ability to rotate, or a manager who likes to rotate. I mean, we saw Lampard bring Pedro on this week. I mean, there is the risk that, Mount's just had his 2-game rest, essentially, if you look at it that way. There is the risk that Pulisic potentially gets benched. So I think the key for a lot of fancy managers is to look for players that are not just nailed on. I mentioned Perez with 60-minute, 65-minute games, but that are going to play at least 85 minutes. And Ali, as we've seen in both these games, has played, and he's played 170 minutes over 2 games. So we really need to be looking at players who are not just going to play every game, but are going to play most of every game. And I think if you look at teams, well, we all know Pep's teams, right? It's like a lottery every time. So he's going to play in the front 3. And who knows, Sterling might play up top. And, I think players like Pulisic have the potential. I know he's off the charts in stats and probably Chelsea's best player, but there is the potential that he will get rested on these games. So if you don't have a great bench, you really need to be picking players that are going to be guaranteed. And Mourinho seems to be nailed. He plays the same team. His rotation is not a key for him.
I think he may get rotated, but I think the thing with Pulisic, which is maybe different to someone like Sterling, things like that, he is the kind of player who comes on, even if he plays the last kind of 20, 25 minutes, he's just as likely to score a goal, or be involved in a goal as well. So I think the point about the bench in Pulisic's case is maybe not as prevalent as it would be for someone like, if Sterling's rested, he tends to get rested, right? Unless they're losing. But with Pulisic, you want to hope he starts, because if he doesn't, he'll probably only get, say 20 odd at the end. But yeah, we've got one more question on midfielders, and it came from another Hub contributor, Matthew Jones, arguably the best player in the world. And while we're on midfielders, I just want to ask you to see if we could help Matthew out, and it was what to do with Sterling and KDB. Their price is hamstringing his team, but he's frightened of losing them. I just wondered what your guys' thoughts were on Sterling and KDB. Does he need to hold them both? Can he get rid of both? Can he just do with David Silva? Adam, can I come to you first on this one?
Yeah, get rid of Sterling. Too expensive, not producing. Simple. I just think it's better play. We've mentioned so many. Yeah. Son, Ali, Mane's better at the same price. Yeah. There's just too many options, and I think he's too expensive where he went captain. I think KDB, because he's 2 million cheaper, he's probably worth holding, and actually he's capable of producing the goals that he did the weekend. And I think he's put was it a 7 and a 10 in the last 2 matches. So yeah. I think both are dispensable, but Sterling would be the priority, and I wouldn't be worried about losing either personally.
Yeah, I was hanging on to Sterling and KDB for a while. I was looking at the Mendy impact, the Jesus impact. I held Sterling this week, but I've taken him out for Ali. Price point, we can look at why he's not performing, but ultimately that price point, I know he should have scored in the last minute. Ultimately, he's just not performing for that price. And freeing up that budget allows you to get a second premium striker, maybe even a 4th or 5th premium midfielder. So there is the other kind of issue with Sterling, is that he's on 4 yellow cards. Now they have Burnley up next and then United after that. So there is the risk that Pep rests Sterling for the next game, simply to keep that record. He needs to win against United. So I don't know. I'm still on the fence for that one, but ultimately I removed Sterling this week. I've just run to the end of patience with him, and Ali and Son, I might even look at him, and it just frees up budget to be able to bring those players in.
Yeah, I think there's obviously fear with these guys, isn't it? As Matt's saying there, Matthew's saying there. Sorry, I think with Sterling, Adam's right, and Andrew, you're right as well. Just he's not performing commensurate to his value, so it's time for, at the moment, him to maybe make way for some of the better options. It's looking like in the near term, but I completely understand why people are keeping him. I just think that right now, it's more about. I don't know about you guys, but I bought Kevin De Bruyne at 9.5, and I think that his he is performing commensurate to that value. Obviously, it's been puffed a little bit by the last 2 games, but I think he's just a pretty good asset to hold at that price, barring injury, of course. And it's about buyback ability, I suppose, because I've got money tied up in De Bruyne, whereas I didn't have any tied up in Sterling, and indeed he will go below cost price, initial price, like not very long. So I thought, well, I mean, who am I going to? If I want to buy back De Bruyne, I'm going to have to pay a lot more and lose that sort of accrued value in my team. Whereas with Sterling, you can buy him back, around the same sort of price. So, yeah, it's just one where I've got De Bruyne. I'm happy to keep De Bruyne. Let's not forget that guy was a captaincy pick for many people during the start of the season, and I'm not sure we're going to be captaining a Man City asset anytime soon. Particularly, it's only kind of game week 20. Is it 2020 when they get a little bit better, something like that? But I mean, holding one makes sense. So the most attacking team in the league, obviously, all of the team stats are very weighted to Man City. So I'd feel a bit kind of naked without one, if that makes sense. I find it very, very difficult to watch them if I didn't own a Man City player, Man City attacker, that is. But yeah, I'm keeping De Bruyne. I think Sterling isn't quite providing value. But that said, Burnley away, you could be, and I think Charlie Taylor's out as well, isn't he? So actually, no, it's the wrong side. But anyway, I think that there's an option to keep him for sure. I just, at the moment, I'm glad that I got rid of him a few weeks ago, because I just don't feel the pain now when he scores, because I had those 2 blanks out of him straight away compared to my players.
It's interesting if you look at, everyone thinks City are just this force going forward, but in recent games they've only, I looked at the Hub stats tool, in the last 2 games they've only had 5 big chances compared with Leicester and Spurs with 10 big chances each. Obviously lower XG as well than Spurs and Leicester, as we've seen from the result clearly. But Man City, and whatever's happened to them, whether it's he's curtailing the wing backs, or maybe losing Aguero, or whatever it may be, maybe having to rotate that defense around and having Rodri in and out of the team, I don't know, something's not right there. So even potentially losing KDB, if you can switch the value around, if you could have Ali and Son as your 4th and 5th mids alongside the likes of Pulisic, etc., it might not be a bad idea to lose all Man City for a while and then clearly move to them when they come back on form.
I think like you mentioned there, for me, the key reason that Man City aren't as good as they lost Laporte, and I think that's such a big impact. If Liverpool lost Van Dijk, you'd see something similar. I think a lot of teams, you saw it with Norwich when they had all the centre-backs out, the confidence of the forwards a lot of the time comes from the fact that they've got confidence in defence. I think it filters through the teams. And I just think since I've lost Laporte, they've gradually, they lost to Norwich, and they've had a few decent results in there, but he made such a big impact going in there. It's meant that Fernandinho can't play in midfield. We know how effective he is in that holding role a lot of the time. So I do think, like Andy just said there, I don't think there's a fear factor really for me anymore. I think the first game week you lose Sterling or De Bruyne is always going to be the hardest, because it's I can't watch that first game. But luckily I was out for the Newcastle game, so I didn't see it. And then just saw he only scored once. Oh, that's fine. It's not the end of the world. So
we know now that Sterling's going to score a hat-trick against Burnley and KDB's going to assist them all, right? That's the way this goes.
Well, I've got KDB, so I'll be all right with that. Like everyone else.
I do wonder if that last gasp Sterling shot had actually crept under, whether we'd be having this conversation or not, because obviously that would have been an assist for De Bruyne and more bonus, and Sterling would have probably had max bonus, so Sterling would have had like 16, 17 points and KDB 13. I do wonder. It just amazes me how these, how that fingertip save can so potentially drastically change your outlook on a whole team.
The only other thing to say on it, actually thinking of timing, because timing is really important on this, looking at the fixtures of the other players, Mane and Salah have got a tough game again. Merseyside derby will be a pretty tight game, I think. And then you've got Spurs away at United again. That could be quite tight. So maybe the time to do it's the weekend when the fixtures are better. Maybe holding for the Burnley have actually shipped a few at home, particularly. I remember, so even Zaha scored. So maybe keep him for that one.
Okay. Okay, so looking at our teams then going into the weekend, Tom, so you scored 54 on the weekend?
Yeah, I did. Well, speaking of, you were saying a second ago, Andrew, about lucky moments. I captained Mane last week and didn't captain Vardy. And obviously, the Mane blank was greeted by Vardy scoring, and I was just like, oh no, I'm 18 points. All the Vardy captains got 18 points. My last minute Iheanacho winner pushed Vardy completely out of the bonus, and it was just like, whew, all right. But I'm not going to do that to myself again. That's for sure. So it's Captain Vardy for this game, maybe Captain Vardy against your mob, Adam, and then definitely Captain Vardy against Norwich. It's just a case of why do it to yourself and captain elsewhere. I can see why you might be thinking elsewhere, but he scored again, guys. He may well blank, but that's just gambler's fallacy. There's no point in doing it to yourself. As mentioned, with Mount for Zaha, I'm operating at 0.0 in the bank at the moment. So I had to take the chance last night to take Mount before he dropped out for Zaha. Still got Abraham. It's a win-win for me, really. I think he either starts or he just doesn't play at all. So I'm looking. So I think that Soyuncu off the bench, that's great. Watford at home, double up with Chilwell as well. So yeah, I'm just hopeful to keep pushing on. Haven't taken a hit again, and hopefully I can build on that. I don't know how I got a green arrow. I think it was just because of that moment with Vardy not getting the free bonus, because I was just 3 above the average this week, and but hopefully it's looking like a good game week. So another 30 points, no doubt, is in the offing.
Your team's looking very strong, Tom.
It is,
and even the bench. I'm jealous, very, very jealous.
I got very jammy now with the bench. I said it in the hub chat earlier on. But Kelly and Cantwell, just a couple of weeks ago, were looking like absolute junk. Like Kelly was been pushed out of the team by Joel Ward, and now Joel Ward's injured. Kelly is a stick on until the end of the Christmas period, which also coincides with the end of Crystal Palace's amazing run. So he can just kind of stick around, maybe come on every now and again, who knows. And Cantwell has just kind of rediscovered his form, hasn't he? As you mentioned earlier, you're playing him this week. So yeah, it's a lot of congestion. I'm kind of an Andrew situation actually, where I
bench boost option.
I could do, but it's looking like quite a straightforward season in terms of the chips this year. So I think I'm just going to kind of stick to the majority, I suppose, on those. And people who are playing the bench boost a little bit earlier are the prey, I suppose, that I'm looking to beat when I bench boost on double game week in 37, I think it is, isn't it? It's quite late this year. But yeah, thanks, guys. I think hopefully it's going to be all right, but I'm guessing 20, 30 points now.
Okay, so looking at Adam's team, 53. Adam?
Yeah, I suppose that this week I've considered a few options. I'm regretting bringing Rashford in. I fell for it at the start of the season. Man United are rubbish, and Villa should have beaten them. And I've never felt I fell for it twice now. So on a unique hat trick, if I take him out, I'm not bringing him in again. I think I've got 2 options. I think if there was absolute certainty Tammy Abraham was fit and was going to start, I'd consider reversing the move. And the reason for that, I actually wouldn't have taken Abraham out if I thought he was going to be out longer. So I might do that, and then it will free up the funds to do Mount to Ali the weekend, which is what. So that's a possibility. Worst case, I'll just save the transfer, keep it as it is, and then potentially make those moves the weekend. But I plan to bring in a Spurs player the weekend for to captain as well. I'm going to go away from Vardy. Don't think he'll do great at Villa Park. Absolute fortress at the moment. So.
Tyrone Mings will have him in his pocket.
Well, exactly. So I'm fairly confident on that one.
Okay, and Andy's very Spurs-heavy team already, Andy. 49.
Well, last week, I didn't plan to take out Tammy Abraham. I think, we'll see whether he plays this week. I think it looked a bit more serious at the time. So, and then we heard he wasn't going to be updated till Monday. So I took him out, and I actually went for Harry Kane. I was quite impressed with Mourinho's, look at the goal scoring record against West Ham. Okay, they're weak, but to come back and score 4 goals against Olympiacos. I actually looked at a lot of people are saying, oh, well, Kane's playing as a defensive midfielder. But actually, over the last 2 games, he's had 6 shots, 4 of those in the box. So the issue with Kane is that on the counter-attack, which is the way Mourinho's played, certainly played against Bournemouth, and I would imagine he might play against United, is that Kane just either doesn't have the pace or he's kind of too deep. So he's not there on the counter-attack, but he's certainly there, on all the set pieces. He's the penalty taker. So I'm going to stick with him for another couple of weeks. And then at that price point, I can easily move him on and bring in Son with 2 free transfers and look at a more, mid-priced forward. But Ali, I took my first hit this season to bring in Ali. I think he's going to be, I think that his best season, he was up at 225 points. I've got it for the season. So what I've seen from him, 7 more shots than Kane, 7 shots, 3 on target, 5 in the box. So I think he's going to be a mainstay of my team going forward. And finally, I brought in Vardy. Clearly, watching him was frightening. He should have scored 2 and assisted 1 yesterday. So I think he will certainly be my captain against a depressed Watford. Cantwell for me plays himself. Again, I will be looking at Mount if he doesn't perform in the next couple of games. So I could, if Kane and Mount don't perform, I can switch them around quite easily. But yeah, Kane's a bit of a differential and disappointing. I expected goals versus Bournemouth. They scored 3, but he wasn't involved.
I'll tell you who else you've got as a differential there, Andy, is Adrian in goals. He comes off your bench.
Well, that was a bit fortunate because I was thinking, God, I need to move on Pope at some point. Yeah. Everton did score against the weekend, but ultimately, I still think Liverpool have more of a clean sheet potential than Burnley against City, although probably fewer shot saves.
Yeah. And finally, my team. So I scored 46. I took a -4, so it was net 42. I captained Mane for my ridiculous run of can't get any points from a captain. I'm actually very happy with my team as it stands. It's just that Stekelenburg. Again, I look and even with Connolly away to Arsenal on my bench, I think there's potential to get some points. I've got Cantwell as third sub. I've still got Abraham. I've got Pulisic. So I've got David Silva as the cover for Man City. I've got the double Liverpool defence. I'm just struggling at the moment. I said off air to hit a captain, and also I keep benching points as well. So I'm hoping this week is finally my week. I think my only decision I need to make is whether to play Soyuncu potentially ahead of, I'm even thinking of David Silva, just because of that home to Watford. I'm not sure yet.
Well, I'd be tempted to shove Tomori on the bench, actually. I think Adam's Villa loving point earlier, I think Villa look in the mood at the moment, and I can see them scoring against Chelsea. And Tomori offers less up. I think they don't offer, neither of them really offer any upside, but offer any upside. Don't know why I went a bit northern then. So I think Soyuncu's got a better chance of keeping a clean sheet against a depressed Watford, as you put earlier, than Tomori does against a free scoring on fire Aston Villa UTV.
You said it, Tom.
I'll take a look at that after you, Tom. I appreciate that. And in terms of transfers, I mentioned earlier, I'm thinking of bringing in Guaita for Pope, which I'll probably decide on a bit more tomorrow after a bit more thought. But I do like the longevity potentially of Guaita in goals above the others, and I'm not too keen up on a double up. I think I'm with Adam in that camp in terms of spreading the risk a bit more. But yeah, we'll see. So there are our teams, and that is it from us. We will be back next week with the legendary Rich Clark. For those who know Rich, he'll be making his FPL podcast debut. He's had 2 top 500 finishes and a further 5 top 10k finishes. So an absolute FPL legend. You won't want to miss that one. Andy, where can we find you?
FPL Fancy Guide on Twitter.
Okay, and Adam?
Hopcroft13 on Twitter.
Okay, and finally Tom.
At WGTA_FPL.
Lovely job. And my Twitter handle is at Fergie222. This video will be available on YouTube, with the podcast versions available on all major podcast libraries, including iTunes, SoundCloud, and Spotify. If you like what you hear, please like, share, subscribe, retweet. It all helps get the word out. Any comments, feedback, very, very welcome. If there's any way that which we can improve anything at all, please let us know. Our Twitter handle is @FFootballHub, and our podcast Twitter handle is @FFH_podcast. So please feel free to follow and ask us any questions. Our website is fantasyfootballhub.co.uk, where you will find everything you will ever need for fantasy football all under one roof. Please don't forget as well, guys, the FPL deadline tomorrow is 6:30 p.m, which is the earliest I can ever remember, actually. I can't remember a 7:30 game. It's normally 7:45 or 8 o'clock, so please don't get caught out by that. And we will be back next week. In the meantime, we hope you have a great Game Week 15, and we bid you thank you and good night. Good night.
Good luck.
Good night.
Cheers.